أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء المرسلين حبيب العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين أما بعد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ولقد كرمنا بني آدم وحملناهم في البر والبحر ورزقناهم من الطيبات وفضلناهم على كثير ممن خلقنا تفضيلا صدق الله العلي العظيم إجمال صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وعجل فرجه. Many of us, after the month of Ramadan ends, as we begin and enter the month of Shawwal, we start to have a change in our soul or a change in our mental view on how we approach our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For many of us, we know that the month of Ramadan is a month of greatness, a month that you are connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you're fasting and when you do all of your other a'mal. But many of us find that after this month of Ramadan ends and the day of Eid has passed, we struggle to find that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And upon finding that struggle, it might cause us to be more afraid of connecting with Him. It might make us less interested in connecting our soul with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the month of Ramadan in itself is a training regimen for us. It's, as some describe, a kind of a boot camp. Like many people who come and they develop their bodies over a 30-month period in a boot camp or a training regiment, they create themselves at the top shape that they can be physically. And like that, in Ramadan, we shape our bodies, we shape our souls in that way to create that and we establish that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And after those 30 days have ended for most people physically, after they finish that gym regiment, if you ask them, do you think that they will stop continuing to exercise or so? Well, most of them will say no, right? Now that I've built that great connection I built that great physical body, I've created that physical state, I want to keep it. I want to keep myself at a very strong level. I want to keep myself in the best shape I can be. And just like that, after we finish our 30 days of having that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we want to keep that connection so we can keep it year-round. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not someone who will bless you in the month of Ramadan. He's not someone who's going to shower you with all of His blessings within 30 days and then leave you for the other 11 months. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's not just Ar-Rahman during the month of Ramadan. He's not just Ar-Rahim during the month of Ramadan. Allah is always Ar-Rahman. Allah is always Ar-Rahim. So we need to understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is still there. But us as human beings with our own flaws are unable to have that connection with Allah. And the issue here is that we don't understand our true potential as human beings. We don't understand the true potential of the soul. So tonight I want to discuss that aspect of the human soul and how we can reach that potential, how we can connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way that after our month of Ramadan has ended, throughout the year we can still keep that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when I began with the verse, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ وَحَمَلْنَاهُمْ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ وَرَزَقْنَاهُمْ مِنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ وَفَضَّلْنَاهُمْ عَلَى كَثِيرٍ مِمَّنْ خَلَقْنَا تَفْضِيلًا. Indeed, we have dignified the children of Adam and carried them on land and sea, granted them good and lawful provisions. And here's the important aspect of this ayah. And we privileged them far above many of our creations. وَفَضَّلْنَاهُمْ عَلَى كَثِيرٍ مِمَّا خَلَقْنَا تَفْضِيلًا. We've given them that fadilat. We've given them that fadilat over other creations. We've given them that greatness that they have, that privilege that they have. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows that this insan has such a high position in His eyes. We have such high potential in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we don't truly understand. Allah believes that you have that potential to be at the top of the top. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in the Quran? لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. We've created the human in the best of form, with the best form. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you at such a state where you're so close to Him. And when you're born without sin, you're born at a high level where you're connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what does He say in the next verse? ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ. But then they are the ones that take themselves to the lowest of lows. Insan in itself has that potential to be the greatest of the greats. They could be the level of the Holy Prophet and his blessed progeny. And these are our examples we should use to try to find that potential in ourselves. Or the insan can follow his nafs. Or the insan can follow his desires, his animalistic desires, to reach the lowest of lows. So this is the potential of the human being. We're not, compared to the animals, we have our own ability to reason. We have that ability to have aql, to be able to distinguish between right and wrong, to distinguish between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's orders and our own animalistic desires. But as opposed to that, we also have the angels who have no desires. They don't have any nafs. So they are, of course, at a very high level. But insan, because of that jihad al-nafs that they have, the jihad al-akbar, the greater struggle that they have, they're able to be the best of creations. And that means that they're above those of the angels. And we know that in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي خَالِقٌ بَشَرًا مِنْ صَلْصَالٍ مِنْ حَمَاءٍ مَسْنُونٍ وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي فَقَعُوا لَهُ سَاجِدِينَ. Remember, O Prophet, when your Lord said to the angels, I'm going to create a human being from sounding clay, molded from black mud. So when I fashioned him, and I had a spirit of my own creation breathe into him, fall down in prostration to him. فَقَعُوا لَهُ سَاجِدِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands His angels to prostrate before Adam. Wallah, this shows the level of the humans in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That we have that ability to be the best of His creations, the closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can do that. And we have this potential. But many of us, we don't understand that true potential of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the true potential within ourselves. We can use a certain example here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always rain down on you blessings. He's always going to send blessings down on you. On all of His creations, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down blessings. But the question is, how big is your cup? How big is the cup that you can hold those blessings? That's your potential. You have the potential to receive all of the blessings Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enters into that cup. You have the potential to do it. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you that I'm always here. You take one step to me, I'll take 10 steps towards you. So if you try to go and reach that potential, if you try to build that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will build that relationship with you. And the issue is that after Ramadan ends, we start to lose that relationship. We start to move ourselves away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We forget that our potential is so high after this month of Ramadan ends. And we need to make sure that we use our soul as a vehicle to reach ourselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And on a final point, on how we can build that potential, one of the most important aspects of it is our taqwa. And surely in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna akramakum indallah atqakum. Surely those who are the dearest to Allah, who have karama, close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who are the most noble in His sight, are those who are the most righteous among them. Now what do we mean when we say atqakum? If you're the noblest in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to be atqakum. And taqwa, according to one of the sheikhs in his book, Shahid Mutahiri, he says in his book, about taqwa. He says that this is the concept of self-restraint, to be able to restrain yourself in this world. If you're able to have that self-restraint, you have taqwa. It's used 251 times in the Holy Quran as a noun or a verb. It comes from the word waqaya, which means protection, which means to have support. So when you have taqwa, you have your self-protection. And many of us think that taqwa means that we have fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are afraid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we'll see later on that we don't mean taqwa as in to have fear of Allah. Many times it is related to fear, and it could metaphorically mean this when we said taqwa. But when we actually mean by taqwa is having that protection. For example, when we say have taqwa from Allah or have ittaqul nar, and we mean protect yourself from the fire, protect yourself from Allah's punishments. That means to have taqwa. And we can see this when Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq describes, he says, ibadah, worship is of three kinds. The one who worships God because he fears him. Listen to this closely because this is an important aspect on how you can understand. Which of these three are you? The three types of worship. The one who worships out of fear. The one who worships out of being thrown into the hellfire. This is the worship of a slave. The Ahlul Bayt have said this. What's the second? The one who worships because he wants to earn a reward. What does the Ahlul Bayt say about this person? The person who worships for the sake of trying to get a reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this person is the worship of a businessman. He's trying to create a transaction with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says that, okay, I will do ibadah of you. You give me this reward in the afterlife. So that's the second aspect of worship. The second type of worship that one can have. And the third type of worship, and this is the best type of worship that we can have. This is the one that's most loved by Allah. It is the worship of the one who is actually in love with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I've discussed this in some of my previous lectures about having that love of Allah and worshiping just for the sake of the love of Allah. And this is a very difficult task. But the Ahlul Bayt, the A'imma, alayhimus salam, they've worshipped because of this love for Allah. They built that connection with Allah to a point where they fell in love with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let us all fall in love with Allah. Let's also build that connection with Allah. Let's follow in the footsteps of our A'imma alayhimus salam. And one of the most beautiful sayings of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, what does he say? He says, Ya Allah, I do not worship you for fear of punishment or in hope of reward. Rather, I know that you are the only one worthy of my worship. Not because I fear your punishment, not because I want your reward, because you are the only one worthy of my worship. I want to worship the Allah of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. That is the true Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we should try to worship. That should be the person that we should struggle to have that inner jihad, that jihad al-akbar, that inner struggle to get towards. That is the love that we need to create with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because only you are worthy of my worship. No one else. Every single thing that is in this world, it is just something to distract me from my final goal. So it's out of the love of the worship, out of love of worship that Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam had worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let's keep that in mind. Let's try to be the akramakum indallah. Let's try to be the noblest in the eyes of Allah by being the most, to protect ourselves, by being the ones who can keep ourselves worshipping in the way of Allah, even after this month of Ramadan has ended. And there are so many ways that we can build that connection. But let's keep that connection strong even after our month of Ramadan has ended. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ijma salawat. Allah.